Every password ever typed, every bank transfer ever sent, every private message whispered between two phones under a blanket, at midnight rests on a bargain with math. That bargain says, break me if you can, but it will take the lifetime of the universe. Quantum computing is the first real contender to walk up to that bargain, look it in the eye, and say, deal. So here's the paradox. If the locks on the entire digital world can be opened all at once, what survives when encryption blinks? Encryption isn't a padlock on a few secrets. It is the scaffolding of modern civilization. Payments settle because signatures are trusted. Power grids respond to authenticated commands. Stock markets hum because the orders are genuine. Satellites steer, passports scan, medical records remain unaltered, elections tabulate votes without a second voice slipping in. The heartbeat of the internet is not the cable or the radio waves or the cloud. It is the quiet assumption that certain math problems are easy in one direction and essentially impossible in the other. Follow the chain of trust long enough and something unsettling emerges. The world doesn't just rely on secrecy, it relies on time. Attackers are assumed to be too slow. Quantum computing threatens to reset the clocks for everyone. There was a time when secrets belonged to artisans and courtiers. Spartans wrapped messages around a staff and called it security. Caesar shifted letters by 3 and slept well. Renaissance diplomats filled squares with alphabets and felt invincible. All of them learned the same lesson the hard way. What looks unbreakable is usually just waiting for the right kind of attacker. Not stronger soldiers, smarter tools. Enigma was a cathedral of secrecy with daily changing wiring and a ritual of discipline around it. It fell not because brave men lacked courage at sea, but because new math and new machines stepped on stage and changed the rules. History is full of these moments. The fortress feels timeless until the cannon rolls into view. In the 1970s, a genuine revolution arrived. Instead of hiding one secret key and smuggling it through a hostile world like a jewel sewn into a coat, a new idea appeared. Publish a public key for anyone to use and hold a private key no one can feasibly find. Out of that inversion came the rituals of the modern internet. RSA wrapped messages in prime numbers like armor plates. Diffie-Hellman let two strangers agree on a secret nobody else could overhear, even with the entire conversation recorded. Elliptic curves shrank keys like precision engineering, lighter and faster, for mobile devices and sensors. The magic trick worked because it split computation in two. Easy to do and functionally impossible to undo. Encrypt, sign, verify, exchange. Each act carried the implicit taunt to an adversary. Try it. Try it with all the computers you can afford and live to be old. The numbers will not yield. Look around. This quiet magic is everywhere. That lock icon in a browser isn't decoration. It's the last mile of civilization. A secure tunnel rises between two machines on opposite sides of the planet because public keys introduce them and a shared secret materializes. Code signing stamp seals the updates pushed to phones, cars, and medical implants. Digital identities, passports, corporate badges, entire bureaucracies of trust stand on signatures that cannot be forged. Blockchains wrap ownership around keys that cannot be guessed. Industrial control systems speak only to authenticated voices. The modern world runs because the question, who really sent this? Untoy has a reliable answer. Quantum computing changes the attacker, not the target. Classical bits live in a strict binary, this or that, 0 or 1. Qubits can occupy combinations, interfere like waves, and be steered through a landscape where wrong paths cancel and the right path glows brighter. With the right algorithm, an attacker no longer tries every key one by one. The probability terrain is reshaped, so the solution rises to the surface like a buoy in a storm. Two algorithms matter more than the rest for this story. The first is Shor's algorithm. It collapses the bedrock assumptions behind RSA and elliptic curve cryptography, the hardness of factoring large integers and solving discrete logarithms, into problems a sufficiently large, error-corrected quantum computer can solve. Not slightly faster, catastrophically faster. The wall doesn't erode, it disappears. The second is Grover's algorithm, which gives a quadratic boost to brute force search. Symmetric ciphers and hash functions are not doomed by Grover, but they are shoved. Double key sizes and the fortress still stands, but with thicker walls and shorter breadth. If Shor ever runs at the scale needed, the public key layer that underwrites identity and secrecy across the planet doesn't merely weaken, it fails. And failing in cryptography isn't a graceful slide. The line between safe and compromised is not a gradient, it's a cliff. There's a quieter threat already underway, and it doesn't require a working quantum computer today. Harvest now, decrypt later. It sounds like a bumper sticker. It is more like a vault heist planned a decade in advance. Adversaries can record encrypted traffic now, diplomatic cables, health records, financial documents, corporate R&D, and store it until the day the machines mature. For some data, a 10-year delay is humiliation but survivable. For other data, 10 years might as well be tomorrow. State secrets age slowly. Genetic data never expires. Business negotiations echo. Legal liabilities linger. Blackmail doesn't have a statute of limitations. Meanwhile, signatures fail in a different register. If an adversary can forge a code-signing key in a post-quantum world, they don't need your secrets. They become you. They ship an update that looks legitimate to your phones, cars, turbines, and satellites. The lock opens and leaves a courteous note on the door with your own letterhead. Consider the global debt of trust embedded in the infrastructure already deployed. Every protocol decision in a decade-old satellite, every smart card in a pocket, every network appliance stuffed in a closet was a bond issued to the future. This signature will still mean something when the calendar changes. Quantum computing is the interest rate shock to that debt. Sovereigns carry it in secure communications and intelligence archives. Finance carries it in interbank messaging, settlement, custody, and ATM networks. Commerce carries it in point-of-sale devices, fraud engines, loyalty systems calibrated to signatures that cannot be forged. Healthcare carries it in medical record integrity and the updates that keep devices safe. Infrastructure carries it in the authenticated messages that tell a grid when to reroute, a train when to brake, a plane when to trust a sensor. Space carries it in satellites that cannot be recalled to a garage and fitted with a new lock. This isn't only about privacy, it is about integrity. Lose that, and coordination fades. People do not merely lose secrets, they lose the ability to agree on what is real. History's pattern is clear. Security claims fail unevenly, and not because defenders get weaker or more foolish, but because the tooling changes. Gunpowder turned castles into tourist attractions. Mechanical bombs and new mathematics turned Enigma from a miracle into a museum piece. The line from secure to breached isn't moral, it is mechanical. Quantum computing is the next tooling jump. For a while, old walls will still stand and the comfortable will point to yesterday as evidence of tomorrow as safety. Then one precise breach, one mass decryption of an archive that should still be opaque, one forged software update that rides on a respected certificate, will move the boundary of the possible overnight. Timelines are the comfort story and the trap. Serious scientists disagree, as they should. Error-corrected machines with millions of reliable qubits might be a decade away. They might be longer. They might be nearer if a handful of breakthroughs snap into place. Uncertainty is not reassurance. Migration takes years, often longer than it will take motivated adversaries to harvest and wait. Security is not a dinner reservation. It is a race with moving goalposts. The right moment to start running is not when the finish line is visible. It's when it is real. There is real good news. The locks can change. A new family of post-quantum algorithms resists known quantum attacks by standing on different mathematics, lattices, codes, hashes, landscapes where Shor's algorithm has no leverage. Key encapsulation mechanisms like Kyber can replace RSA and elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman in building secure channels. Signature schemes like dilithium and Sphinx Plus can authenticate software, documents, and identities without relying on the assumptions quantum tears apart. These are not miracles. They are fresh walls on sturdier ground. Two immediate principles follow. The first is hybridity. Pair classical and post-quantum in the same handshake. If one collapses, the other still stands. Seatbelt and airbag, not either or. The second is crypto-agility. Treat algorithms as modules, not monuments. Certificates, firmware, protocols, and policies must allow rotation of keys, changes in signature schemes, and extension of lifetimes without tearing out the plumbing. The era of set and forget is over. If an infrastructure treats a cipher suite like poured concrete, the defeat is written already. And now the hard part. It's easy to say upgrade the crypto. It is brutal to actually do it at scale. Most organizations don't know where all of their cryptography lives. It hides in custom code and vendor binaries, in chips soldered to aging boards, in forgotten scripts, in little servers someone swore would be replaced last year. Step one is cartography. Make a map. What uses RSA or ECC? For what purpose? Handshakes, signatures, storage? Which systems have lifetimes measured in months? Which in decades? Prioritization comes next. Not all data ages the same. Classify by confidentiality lifetime. If exposure in 2035 still injures, it is high priority in 2025. Performance and size are not footnotes. Post-quantum keys and signatures can be bigger. Do protocols have headroom? Do microcontrollers and smart cards and satellite links? Long-lived equipment raises awkward questions. Cars, industrial gear, medical devices can run 15 years or more. If they cannot be updated, they risk turning into cryptographic fossils. Supply chains become policy problems. A vendor's update servers are your system's jugular. If their signatures can be forged, so can your products. Governance will lag unless forced to catch up. Certificate lifetimes, legal signatures, document retention rules, audit checklists, these were calibrated to old math. New locks demand new paperwork, new approvals, new training, new drills. What breaks first? Confidentiality fails quietly. A leak appears one morning with details too fresh to have come from old newspapers, and yet the documents should still be sealed. The explanation will arrive late. Authenticity fails loudly. A forged update passes validation. A counterfeit transaction instruction clears. A certificate that has no right to work works. Integrity incidents are the sirens. They force emergency stops. Markets halt. Fleets are grounded. Services freeze. Not because the machinery is broken, but because trust is. Triage shifts from what data leaked to which messages can be believed enough to keep the lights on. That shift is the true economic cost. The days when nobody knows whom to trust are the days value evaporates fastest. Crises are redistributions. When locks fail, value moves. Winners will be the institutions that mapped their cryptography early, built crypto agility into their systems, and deployed post-quantum protections where it matters most: identity, code signing, and long-life secrets. Those players won't just avoid disaster, they will capture opportunities when competitors freeze in place. Losers will be brands whose business model is trust, but whose infrastructure is glued to yesterday S-math. Their incidents won't read as bad luck. They will read as negligence. There's a second transfer lurking beneath the headlines: sovereign credibility. Nations that secure their archives, update their protocols, and authenticate their infrastructure with modern primitives will gain soft power that markets will price. Those that hesitate will leak both secrets and standing. The early movers write the standards. The late movers read the incident reports. So what can be done now without the drama of press conferences or panic buying of hardware? Start with inventory. Wherever keys live, list them. Wherever signatures flow, list them. Map the lifetimes of the secrets they protect. Classify data by its shelf life, not its marketing label. Adopt hybrid handshakes where feasible, making the path to post-quantum gradual and reversible instead of brittle and sudden. Prioritize code signing. Update channels or arteries. If signatures cannot be forged, attackers must work in the dark. If signatures can be forged, attackers can stroll through the front door. Design systems to swap algorithms, version keys, provide room and certificates for new schemes, plan for out-of-band updates when in-band trust is in question. Test supply chains. Require vendors to publish cryptographic roadmaps, not soothing press quotes. Practice drills. If a root certificate authority collapses or a signature scheme is deprecated overnight, who acts first, who approves what, and what gets shut off while the lights stay on elsewhere? The goal is not perfection. The goal is to be earlier than the breach. Individuals are not powerless. Prefer services that publish post-quantum plans and demonstrate real upgrades. Use end-to-end encrypted tools that support modern protocols and key rotation. Keep backups that don't depend on a live network to be trusted. Verify them. Update firmware even when it feels boring. Boredom is a strategy. There's always a temptation to reach for the most exotic rescue. Quantum key distribution has the glamour of physics, doing security by the laws of nature. It is real and powerful within narrow channels. It does not replace signatures, does not scale to the messy, roaming internet, and does not fix the long tail of devices and protocols that must operate everywhere. For most of the world, the path is more prosaic. Post-quantum algorithms inside the systems already in use. Poetry is fine, but plumbing carries the water, and the blink itself? It may not come with trumpets. It may arrive as a stutter, a handful of leaks with an odd freshness to them and no obvious explanation. A certificate chain behaving strangely but passing anyway. An update that was signed yesterday by a key that shouldn't exist tomorrow. Standards. Bodies will work through the night to bless interim migrations and emergency flags. Teams will scramble. The prepared will rotate keys and carry on. The unprepared will hold meetings about meetings while the clock runs. The first breach will look like an outlier. The second will look like bad luck. The third is when the cannon becomes visible on the hill and everyone remembers the old castle walls were never sacred. There is an old line politicians and vendors turn to in moments like this. The situation is being monitored. Monitoring is not a plan. Time is not on the defender's side. The goal is not to predict the day quantum breaks everything. The goal is to make sure that when it does, most systems do not notice. The modern world has turned trust into a protocol and tied that protocol to mathematical assumptions that are now in play. The line between safe and compromised is about to blur. Quantum computing doesn't make cryptography useless. It makes complacency fatal. History tells this story over and over. The locks that felt eternal belonged to an era whose tools had stopped changing fast enough to threaten them. Then the tooling jumped, and the fortresses became archives. This is not an argument for despair. It is a call to treat trust like the living infrastructure it is. The bargain with math can be rewritten. The scaffolding can be reinforced while the city keeps breathing. The choice is not whether everything will change. It already is. The choice is whether to be one of the many left holding obsolete promises, or one of the few holding something real. Systems that adapt, messages that can still be believed, signatures that still mean what they say. History has the answers. Know where to look.